You may have been aware of the previous ways on how to prompt ChatGPT effectively, including giving it a role, including context, and then finally giving it your prompt, but that no longer works the same with DeepSeek R1 and other reasoning models such as ChatGPT's O3, which is surprising because these models are technically more advanced. They can think through your prompts and potentially mitigate the need for prompt engineering. But that's not what we're seeing. Yes, out of the box, these models have better generations for unstructured prompts, but using structured prompts allows you to have a more consistent output and have a better user experience. So if these old prompting methods don't work too well anymore, then what should we do? Well, today I'm going to walk you through how you can prompt these reasoning models to get the response that you're looking for. Let's start with a simple example. In this prompt, I'm telling it to act as my life coach where I'm struggling with self-doubt, and I want it to use the Socratic method to ask me 7 questions, one at a time, to force me to solve my own problems. The response it gave was very open. It was very vague. The question was, can you identify a specific situation or context where your self-doubt felt strongest? What about that situation triggers doubt for you? This is something I didn't really know how to respond to. It was so vague and open-ended, and I didn't know what it really wanted from me as a response. After structuring the prompt, it spent a lot less time thinking and also output the question of, when did you first start noticing feelings of self-doubt, and what was happening in your life at that time? These are questions that you can readily answer because you would know the answer to these questions. So simply just by knowing how to prompt this AI, you get a lot more usable product that's more user-friendly, and also you get what you're looking for much faster. In order to better our prompting, we should know what is different about these new models compared to the previous models. The previous LLMs that we had, such as ChatGPT's O1 and also Claude's Sonnet 3.5, they simply looked at the conversation as if it was a script from a book or a movie. It would see what character 1, aka you, said, and then it would act as character number 2 to fill in what would make sense as a response to the dialogue provided before it. As you chat back and forth, it's constantly making predictions on what would make sense given the response. The thing that's different with these reasoning models is that they now think about whatever you just said and will then generate a response based on the thought process as well as the context of the conversation. So the thought process now becomes a piece of the context for the response. The thought processing increases the complexity of what the AI needs to consider when generating its response, and therefore sometimes it skips some of the important information that you provided to it and are expecting in your prompt. So now instead of the AI simply trying to fill in the blank of the conversation, it needs to see what character 1 said, then it needs to see what character 2 thought, and then respond a response of what character 2 would have said giving the thought. So it's tricky. You've seen the response that it gives for an unstructured prompt, and then the response of a structured prompt. And you see, honestly, it's not too different. So the benefits of these reasoning models and their thinking is that if you're not too good at structuring your prompts, you're going to get much better responses compared to other models, but it's not going to be a consistent experience. So that's why we use structuring, so that you know what to expect as a response and you can generate what you want very specifically. So let's look at how we used to do things and why it worked. The old method of effectively communicating with ChatGPT included splitting your prompt into 3 sections. The first section stating the role of the AI. What role is it going to take? Is it a professional in XYZ? And how is it going to respond in this situation? The next section is the context, where you explain the situation and why the response is important and how they should structure their response. The last section is the prompt, or the question, where you actually ask the question or the task that you wanted it to perform. This allowed the AI to take on a persona when it was thinking about its responses, which yielded accurate information and kind of directed in a way where the model should be looking within its brain to generate its response. With these new models though, they take your input a little less seriously. They will think about what you said and then they'll really consider if it's worth considering. This sounds weird, I know, but they definitely gloss over a lot of the specific details that you requested because they thought it through and failed to consider your original prompt after thinking about it. So as it turns out, it's beneficial to be even more specific with your prompts when concerning these reasoning models. In order to properly structure these prompts for reasoning models, the things that you should consider specifying include the task at hand. So what do you want it to do at the end of the day? Another one is providing context. So just dive deeper into why the task is important and what is the situation that makes this task relevant. You should also provide examples. So provide an example of what an output would look like. Similar to assigning its role, you can assign it its persona, which lets it get into the headspace and respond and think in the way that this person would respond in. Another one that I like to include is their voice. So what kind of language do you want them to use, and how do you want them to respond? Do you want it to respond in a comforting tone or a knowledgeable tone? How do you want it to word its output? These are just a few parameters that you can specify to get a response that you're looking for. You can add as many as you want and be as specific as you want. And the more specific you are, the more usable your responses will be. So let's go through the previous example of the unstructured versus structured prompt so I can give you a real example of how to apply these principles. As you can see, the unstructured prompt reads like a sentence. Act as my life mentor. I'm struggling with self-doubt. Use the Socratic method to ask me 7 questions, one at a time, to force me to solve my own problems. It's very open. It's very undirective. The problem with that is that the AI can think about this in many different ways. We would like to guide its thinking to get a more consistent response. You can see that it thought for a while before responding to us, and it thought really hard about this. But that's because we didn't specify what it should be thinking about, and instead it's overthinking the prompt. In contrast, the structured version of the prompt lays out the task very clearly. Help me solve my problems of self-doubt by asking me a series of questions to help me talk through and fix the problems myself. Then we followed it up with the context. I have been feeling discouraged from doing things recently due to self-doubt and I would like some help. Then you brought up the example. So you should ask things such as, what is something you can do within the next 10 minutes that would help your situation? Or give it another example. How do you think this problem developed? I then assign it its persona, which again, the shoes that it should step into when answering this problem. And I told it to act as a compassionate therapist that genuinely wants to help. As long as you specify the category that you're defining, you can be vague within that. You don't have to be specific, such as you're a 40-year-old programmer that is a master in Python. I found it more beneficial to be general and not be so specific with the role it should be taking on. I then chose to add a format section where I told it to ask one question at a time to not overwhelm the user. I gave it a reason of why it should not do this task. Then as the user responds, use the response to ask the follow-up question. So I also specified that I wanted it to come up with additional prompts based off of the responses. I wanted the follow-up question to make sense and dive deeper into what was previously said. And for the voice, I wanted it to use a comforting or encouraging tone. I wanted it to be relaxing to talk to as if it was a real therapist. And the result was a very understanding AI. It asked me about my feelings of self-doubt and when I first noticed it. I responded with, I started noticing self-doubt this morning after not knowing what to do to improve my life. Lately, I haven't been seeing my girlfriend as much. I've been eating worse than I should be, and I haven't been going to the gym as much. And the following response from the AI included, it's understandable to feel overwhelmed when multiple areas of your life feel out of balance. Of the 3 changes you mentioned, less time with your girlfriend, eating habits, and missing the gym, which one feels most closely tied to your self-doubt right now? We can explore them one at a time to avoid feeling stuck. And I chose the gym. The cool thing now is that it's acting properly. It generated the follow-up question based off of what I previously said, so it's not asking a bunch of random questions that don't apply to me. So I mentioned that missing the gym contributes the most, and it said the gym can be a source of structure, confidence, or self-care for many people. What does going to the gym mean for you personally? For example, does it symbolize discipline, progress, taking care of your body, or something else? And then in parentheses, it mentions this helps uncover the deeper connection between missing the gym and your self-doubt. This is just a much better workflow than what was previously provided to us with the unstructured prompt. As a general rule, your first chat within a conversation should mark out most of the specifications and roles that will then be carried forward for the rest of the conversation. Then either if you got the information that you needed from that prompt or the AI goes off track, you should delete the conversation and start new. This will clear its head of any thoughts and you can reformat it in the way that you want. If you keep using the same conversation, it can get confused and more confused the more you try to fix it. So it's better to just close it and start a new instance. If you found this video either helpful or entertaining, please consider subscribing. It would mean a whole lot. If you need additional help on your prompting, please feel free to join my Discord and I'll chat with you one-on-one. It's honestly what I'm here for. So thank you guys so much. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.